6 huge EastEnders spoilers you can't miss. February 24th to 27th, 2025. Next week in Walford, secrets explode, alliances shift, and one character gets a shocking offer that could change everything. Denise goes public with her new romance, but not everyone is happy. Nigel faces a once-in-a-lifetime decision. And Grant? Well, let's just say he's making waves for all the wrong reasons. Trust me, you do not want to miss these bombshells. Stay tuned as we break down all the must-see moments coming up next week. And if you love EastEnders drama, hit that subscribe button now so you never miss an update. Let's dive in. 1. Grant is grilled. Things are getting proper heated between Nigel and Grant, and let's be honest, no one's surprised. Their old friendship isn't quite holding up under the pressure, and you can practically feel the tension crackling in the air. It's not long before the Mitchells decide enough's enough and turn up at number 55 to have it out with Grant. And if you know Grant, you know he's not exactly the type to sit back and take a telling off. He's got that fire in him and keeping his temper in check. Well, that's never been his strong suit. But even the hardest of blokes have their moments of reflection, and after a bit of straight talking from someone who actually means well, Grant takes a step back. Maybe, just maybe, he realizes he's been pushing it a bit too far. Eventually, he makes a call that could sort things out, or at least stop things from getting worse. But this is Walford, and we all know that even the best-laid plans don't always go the way they should. 2. Yolande steps up. Yolande's got a good heart, and she knows Nigel's struggling more than he's letting on. When she clocks him getting a bit wound up, she tries to steer him in the right direction, telling him it's time to be straight with Grant about what's really going on. But Nigel's having none of it. The last thing he wants is to admit that things are slipping out of his control, especially to someone like Grant. It's that old pride kicking in, the kind that makes people bury their problems rather than face them head-on. But Walford's never been the place to keep secrets for long, and before Nigel knows it, the choice is taken right out of his hands. Grant overhears just enough to realize something's off, and once he gets wind of it, there's no dodging the conversation. With the truth hanging in the air, it all comes down to whether Nigel can swallow his pride and be honest, or if he'll keep up the act and hope no one sees the cracks. 3. Denise goes public. Denise has never been one to shy away from making bold choices, and this time's no different. After a heart-to-heart with her new fella, the pair decide it's time to stop sneaking around and just be upfront about what's going on. It's one thing keeping things between themselves, but bringing the families into it? That's a whole different ballgame. Still, they're both ready to take that step, hoping that being honest from the start will make things easier in the long run. But in Walford, nothing's ever that simple. When the moment finally comes, Denise does exactly what she said she would, lays it all out and makes the introductions. But reactions? Well, those are never predictable. Love and loyalty can be a messy mix, and while some might be happy for her, others might not be so quick to celebrate. Whether it's old grudges, fresh doubts, or just pure shock, there's bound to be a few raised eyebrows. The real question is, will this be the start of something solid, or is trouble already brewing? The Mitchells' clash breakfast at Kathy's was never going to be a quiet affair, not with Nigel, Grant, and the Mitchells all in one place. There's an effort to keep things civil, but it's clear the cracks are still there. You can feel the tension bubbling under the surface, and it doesn't take much for things to start boiling over. Old grudges, unfinished business, and that classic Mitchell stubbornness. It's a recipe for trouble. And before long, Grant finds himself right in the firing line as some home truths start flying his way. Never one to sit there and take it, Grant decides he's had enough and makes a swift exit. But walking away from a problem doesn't always mean it goes away, and this one's not about to be ignored. He might put on that tough exterior, but deep down, words stick. And some of what was said clearly hits a nerve. Whether he admits it or not, things aren't quite as black and white as he'd like them to be. And there's plenty for him to think about. Later on, just when he least expects it, someone steps in with a bit of advice. And not from the usual suspects either. This comes from someone Grant wouldn't normally turn to. But sometimes the right words come from the most unlikely places. Whether he'll actually take them on board or brush them off like usual is another matter entirely. One thing's for sure though, this isn't the end of it. Not by a long shot. 5. A truth is revealed. Grant's world is knocked sideways when he finally hears the truth about Nigel's condition. But instead of bringing them closer, it does the exact opposite. It's raw, it's messy, and neither of them knows how to handle it properly. Before long, tempers flare, words are exchanged, and Grant does what he does best, walks away. Number 55 might have been a place for talking, but for Grant, it's the last place he wants to be right now. Once he's out on his own, though, the reality of it all starts sinking in. For all his tough talk and no-nonsense attitude, Grant's rattled, and it shows. There's only so much you can bury before it starts catching up with you, and right now he's feeling every bit of it. He might not say it out loud, but this isn't something he can just shrug off. Desperation creeps in, and he finds himself heading straight for the one person he reckons might have the answers he needs. The question is, who's he turning to? And will they actually give him what he's looking for? Elsewhere, kindness comes when it's needed most, as one family struggling to find their footing gets a helping hand from an unexpected source. Sometimes the smallest gestures make the biggest difference, and right now, that warm welcome couldn't have come at a better time. In a place where drama's never far away, it's rare to see something so genuine, but it just goes to show that Walford's not all shouting matches and betrayal. There's still a bit of heart left in it. Speaking of trust, one resident makes the bold choice to confide in a mate, laying bare a secret they've been holding on to. But in classic Walford style, nothing stays quiet for long. Just as they think their words are safe, someone else happens to be listening in. Whether it was an accident or something more deliberate, the damage is done. Now it's just a matter of time before that secret isn't a secret anymore. 6. Nigel receives an offer. Grant's got it in his head that leaving Albert Square is the only option, and once he's made his mind up, there's no talking him out of it. But before he goes, he takes a moment to look back. One last trip down memory lane, remembering everything that's shaped him over the years. It's not all good, but that's just the way life goes. In the middle of it all, he crosses paths with someone from his past, and instead of old grudges flaring up, something shifts. For once, there's no point scoring, no tension, just two people finally letting go of whatever's been holding them back. But before he can turn his back on Walford for good, there's one more thing on his mind. Nigel. Grant's always been the type to look out for his own, and despite everything, this is no different. Taking Nigel aside, he puts a life-changing offer on the table. Come with him to Portugal, start fresh, and let Grant take care of him as his condition worsens. It's a big ask, and whether Nigel will actually go through with it is another matter. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the square, emotions are running high as residents gather for a somber occasion at Harry's barn. But as always, it doesn't take much for old wounds to reopen, and before long, the grief in the air turns into something far messier. And there you have it. Next week in Walford is shaping up to be an emotional roller coaster. With secrets unraveling, relationships being tested, and big decisions on the horizon, it's safe to say no one's getting an easy ride. Will Grant really walk away for good? Can Nigel face up to what's ahead? And what fallout will Denise's big reveal bring? One thing's for sure, there's no such thing as a quiet week on EastEnders. If you don't want to miss a single twist or turn, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you're always the first to know the latest spoilers. And while you're here, drop a comment below. What do you think will be the biggest shock of the week? Let's get chatting. See you in the next one.